Okay, recording is on. Day 136, 6th of the November 2024. More than 136 days we have covered, but over here it looks 136 days. But project days and other things for this BCM project, I think 30 days or what? First project we have done in depth. We didn't calculate that. And today's topic is Dockers. We have completed with coding related part, database related part, Mongo in detail, MySQL, overview, connectivity, and the basics. Dockers now. What do you mean by Docker? Let me open the website. So if you look at the Docker, okay, I have written the wrong query. A containerization. When you talk about the Docker, it is nothing but the containerization. Let me tell you the first deployment process. A traditional deploy, or so far what we are doing, we are just writing the code over here, the app.js. Here we are writing app.js, installing the needed things. Day 136, sorry, day 136, day, okay, we have entered into that directory, cd day 136, npm init, okay, and npm I express have been installed. Now, how we were deploying this to the cloud or the traditional deployment mechanism. So first process is of the building. We are building the project. Building means what? So we combine multiple JS files in one JS file. Not necessary. That is not necessary, combining all the JS files. But a best way, if you have a multiple JS files over here, you can combine that JS files into one JS file, right? That is called as the build. What is build? Combining all your source files. All of your source file. That is called as build. That is called as source build process. Then after creating this build, right, on the server, so this is the server, so you need to install node.js, and whatever version you have used for building this, same version you would be needing on the server. Then database, a Mongo, instead of this we can say MongoDB. We would be needing node.js, MongoDB. This version we need to have on the server. Node and the Mongo. Okay. So actually on the server there would be two deployments. First your backend and then your front end. First your backend and then your front end. So backend is the Express.js. You will write code in Express.js, and front end you will write code in the React. So React, we know how to communicate the REST APIs over here. So in the Express we are writing the REST APIs, and React can consume that REST APIs. So on the server there would be one build for your backend app, and there would be one build for the front end app, back and the front. So you can deploy it on any server, AWS, Azure, or you can build your own server also. You can build your own server also. Now, at the time of updating, if you want to make some changes in a backend, or if you want to make some changes in the front end, you need to do all this thing once again. You need to do all these things once again. Correct? Hello? Am I audible?
Yeah.
So let's try to do that. So here we can say, I will create a new folder. Inside this, say backend app. And let's move everything to the backend. Move it backend, and here we can create the front end. Here we can create what? Front end. And inside the front end, cd front end. Now we need to create the Vite project. Can you tell me the command for creating Vite project? Hello? Do you remember Vite project? Hello? Vite, remember or not? npm create, or let's use nvm use 18, and npm create Vite. So here Vite, do you want to proceed? Say yes, I want to proceed. So project name, simple. What's the project name? Front app. Which framework? React, JavaScript, plain JavaScript, right? npm install. Okay, cd front app, npm install. So we have installed React in the front. Inside that there is a front app, and can you see there is a app.jsx. Familiar, you might be familiar with all these things, right? In the backend, we just need to do npm install cd backend npm install. Let's install the express. Package.json is already there. In the front end, node modules is already there, right? So you have a back end and the front end together, right? Now what? Whenever you create the build, two separate builds need to be generated. One for this backend app and one for this front end app. There would be two separate builds that would be getting generated. Whenever you deploy this on the server, there would be the backend, there would be the front end. So we'll do this thing in our AWS session. But before that, there is something called as Docker. So instead you do this thing separately. You can combine it once for all, right? So traditionally, the generated build we were copy pasting on the server manually. right? So manually we were copy pasting on the server. So generated build we were manually copy pasting on the server. Now what Docker says that instead you do this thing manually, create the container, a self container. So we will create one Docker for the backend, one Docker for the front end, or we can create, there is something called as Docker Compose. Docker Compose. Okay. So inside this Docker is for the backend, you can say. This Docker is for the backend. So inside this only, you would be having a database reference. You would be having the node version, node installed, and your app inside this only. So on the server, what you will do, instead of deploying this build manually, you will clone this Docker registry. Docker registry. You will do the Docker registry. So Docker is a software. If you see, a Docker hub is there. Docker. So when you say the Docker, when you talk about the Docker is the containerization framework. Docker is nothing but what? The containerization framework, right? Docker guides. So app development, let's select this app development. We want to do the app development, JavaScript. So here we can say they have given a in detailed guide, right? They have given in detailed guides. Mocking the API services in development and testing with the wire mock. That is okay, no problem. So just a minute. Yeah. So when you talk about the Docker, it is the containerized framework, meaning that you would be creating the containers of your images. There would be different parts in your software. So whatever software is requiring, all that things can be placed in one Docker image. Again, I'm saying, so whatever your software is requiring, all that things are combined in one image. So instead of you to deploy by means of the single parts, you can directly use image. Okay. So technically Docker is a one software would be running on your server. That software would be called as Docker engine, and that Docker engine is responsible for running different images. So image 1, image 2, image 3, image 4, multiple images there would be running. Docker will run multiple images. Any question? Is this much clear?
Yeah.
Docker is consisting of the image. What image is consisting of? The layers, different layers. A database layer, then your running software layer, and many other layers. So there would be running layers. Now, if you want to use Docker in your project, there is something called as Docker file. I told you, Docker is consisting of different layers. Right? If you see this thing, defines a Docker file. File can build the image automatically by reading the instructions from the Docker file. A Docker file is a text document that contains all the commands a user could have. Right. So Docker file is having a specific syntax. So app.js, let's write the basic code of let's have the basic code. Okay. This is your expresses. App.listen, this one. Then get method, app.post, create. So response.json, here we can say message, a resource created successfully, app.get, just forward slash request response response.json, msg message. Here is okay, the object is not there. Here is the list of resources. Okay, simple. We have not done anything. This is the simple. Now if you see, if you run it, node app.js express server is running. Okay, now just a minute. Just a minute. Now we are simply running, sorry, we are simply running the project like this, node app.js. Now we need to do same thing by means of the Docker. So here we can say from is the keyword in a Docker, node colon 18, node 18, work dir, here we can say work dir, working directory, create and set the working directory inside the container. We will create, remember that it will install the operating system also, a mini operating system. So so this is the operating system. Now see, Docker from node colon 18, Docker from node colon 18. So this image we can see on the Docker Hub. Can you see image layer details? You can go here and here you can say from Alpine. So node colon 18 hyphen Alpine hyphen Alpine. So this is actually the image, node colon 18 Alpine. Alpine is the Linux. If you see here, Alpine 3 latest. When you talk about the Alpine, Alpine is nothing but what? The Linux. So remember that your every Docker image should have a base image. So this thing is called as the base image. Base image means what? It contains the operating system. So every Docker file needs to be created on some base image. So this is the base image. So here work dir, create and set the working directory for the container, the thing which will run inside the Docker engine, right? So here we can say next thing, copy. So we need to fire npm install. We need to install the dependencies. Copy the package.json file and package star.json file. So copy command would be there. Here we can say copy package star.json in the dot means what? In the current directory. So we need to install one command. So here we can say install the dependencies, run npm install. So here you can say run npm install. Then copy the application files into the working directory. Next step, copy the application files. So whatever application files we are having, that copy into the working directory, that is nothing but app, right? Then expose the port. So here remember that it's an operating system. So when you talk about the container, this is one container. So this container contains everything, right? This container is containing absolutely everything. So this container, so this image contains the everything. Now remember that this is the image and this is your computer, right? So inside the computer you have installed one software called as Docker engine. Docker engine you have installed. Now inside this computer, this is a small computer you can consider. This is the smallest machine. And inside that machine, one application is running on 3000 port. But it is running inside this machine. The application is running inside this machine. We need to expose that to the external world. That is nothing but your laptop. Right. So you need to expose this thing. Here you can say expose 300. Now you need to run the application. See here. CMD is the command. CMD in the bracket node and the arguments app.js. Now see, this is the Docker. Now how do you run this file from the base image working directory? So you will create one app folder inside the working directory. Copy the package.json, install the node directories, change directory cd dot dot, then expose the 3000 port inside the Docker, right? And then run it. So how do you run this command? How do you run it? So Docker, remember that I already have installed the Docker on my machine. Docker build /t my express app. Tag, you need to give a tag. Okay, /t tag my express app, and the last dot is important. Dot means what? Where is the Docker file? Docker file is available in the current directory. Hit the enter, and here if you can see what's happening, Docker build build Docker. Okay, connect to the Docker daemon. So my Docker is not running right now. Go here, so it will start running shortly. So once it starts running, it will take a little time. Yeah, if you see here, I have installed the software, I have installed the Docker by means of this product, Docker Desktop. So just install this Docker Desktop, download the Docker Desktop, install it on your machine. This is the UI for the Docker Desktop, right? You will see something like this. Okay. So these many, if you see the dashboards, these many images I am having right now, these many containers I am having. Image is what you upload on the Docker Hub. What is the Docker Hub? If you go here, this is the Docker Hub, like a GitHub where all the Docker images are uploaded. So you can also upload your own image over here. The way you upload your code on the GitHub, you can upload your own image over here, right? That's the Docker Hub. It's a public server where everyone can upload their Docker images. Just a minute. Okay. Now, the error was, if you can see, is Docker daemon running? So I got to know that Docker is not running. My software itself is not running. Now run it. Can you see? It is building something. See here. It is downloading the layers. It is downloading the layers. Can you see running npm install, exporting the image, waiting the image. Can you see this image have been created, and one image is getting created over here. The Docker scan, right? That is something different. Docker scan, don't worry. Now the Docker image have been generated. Docker image have been generated. Now I want to run it. Docker run. So if you go to the Docker hub also, dashboard, images, can you see my express app? Can you see this my express app? You can find over here, and you can just make the optional settings over here. So localhost, here we can say 3000. If you see here, push to the hub, which means that you can upload this image to the Docker hub, GitHub, right? So nice UI you are having. So you can run it from here also, right? Optional settings, port we didn't specify. So for the local host, container name, my express exp cont. So container port is 3000, and localhost port means on my machine, my laptop switch port. So this 3000 port is getting connected to which port? This my laptop's 3000 port. Just run it, and if you can see port 3000, it is running. So you can see the log for this over here. Can you see? So you can see the log over here. Now let's try to go and hit localhost 3000 forward slash, just forward slash. Can you see MSG? Here is the list of resources. So this is coming from our application, right? So this command /p we have executed with the help of UI. And here my express app, we have executed the same command. We have executed the same command, but with the help of UI. This thing, with the help of same thing. So if you see, I have already downloaded Mongo image from server. So if you go here and here, if you search Mongo, you also install Mongo in this way only. So hence from now, whatever you will do it by means of the Docker. So first install Docker desktop on your machine. Once you install the Docker desktop, then you need to run, you need to download the, first you need to download the images, right? So you can download the image from here also, you can download, or from by commands also you can download. So Mongo, Postgres, MariaDB, and this is green means what? This container is running, the image is running. Got it? Hello? Yes. Did you get the idea of Docker? What Docker is exactly? Now we will run this Docker image on the cloud. Now this Docker image is containing everything. Whenever you create this image over here, whenever you create the image, if you see this image is consisting of everything. Can you see images? So this My Express app is consisting of everything. You don't need to worry about the MySQL database, MongoDB, nothing. That image would be consisting of everything, right? Any questions? No. This is clear, right? If you have any question, you can ask me. No problem. This is the basic idea of the Docker. Docker is a container which is consisting of everything you require to run your software. So instead of piece by piece you will install, you just need to create the Docker image. But whenever you run it, this thing is very, very important. Exposing the container port and the local host port. Remember that Docker, this image itself is a computer. So this image itself is a computer. It has everything to run your software. But if you just run it without specifying the port, if you run it, it will run inside that computer only. So if you want to take the data out of that computer, you need to have the, what you can say, port mapping. And this is the port mapping, Docker run. So either you can run from the command or you can run from the Docker desktop. One and same, no difference. Okay. So I'll upload this thing to Docker. Docker file is okay. Docker basic setup. So tomorrow we will see what is the Docker Compose, and we will try to add the React app also. Okay. And then we'll conclude with the Docker and start with the AWS. So we are about to complete our session, our course. If you want me to cover anything specifically, please let me know.
Okay.
But you need to practice. You are lagging in practice. Okay. Let's call it for a day. We'll meet tomorrow.